A very warm welcome to you, and thank you so much for joining our Homeopathy 24/7 podcast. We are going to be speaking to an array of international guests who will share their knowledge and experiences of homeopathy with you. We will discuss all types of subjects such as remedies, symptoms, and stories of health. No matter where you are with your homeopathic journey, we aim to inspire you on your quest to natural health and living. The podcast is brought to you by Greensmith, the founder of Homeopathy 24/7, which is a global platform connecting you with a homeopath wherever you are in the world, 24 hours a day. So let's get started with today's chat. Please welcome Mary Greensmith.
Hello, welcome. Lovely to see you all. Thank you so much for joining us. And I'm really happy to invite back Ciara Corcoran. Welcome, Ciara.
Thank you very much, Mary. We're very well colour coordinated today in a kind of a
We are in a
gentle grey.
in a muted tone, aren't we? It's it's lovely to see you, and of course to have this opportunity to talk about homeopathy with you. And today, I understand we're going to talk about homeopathy for those more senior years.
Absolutely. I have had, and I use the word wholeheartedly, privilege of supporting quite a few people in my practice who are in their senior years. And I suppose to put in context, senior years, to me, it would be kind of maybe 75 plus.
Yeah.
I think we can all agree that, what do they say, 40 is the new 30 or 60 is the new 50 or whatever I'm trying to say. But you know what I mean? Our population is aging, but our quality of life is in general better. However, when one gets to senior years, there are certainly certain kind of ailments or lifestyle issues that can challenge us. And many of us who may be lucky enough to have support with family, have carers who can support us. For others, they may not be that, it may be out of choice that they live alone, or it may be that they need to move into more integrated care. So there's a spectrum of possibilities in how we can support our wonderful, beautiful senior citizens.
This is so lovely to hear, Ciara, because there are so many aspects, aren't there, where you don't need another medication, you don't need to go to the doctors. But there are so many things that can just give you a little bit more energy, or a little bit more integration, a little bit more understanding, and perhaps make things like grief less overwhelming.
Yeah, I think that's a lovely segue into the kind of emotional support that's often overlooked and needed, well needed um, by our I'm going to refer to our senior loved ones, but our elder loved ones. But again, at a certain age, nature being nature, our energies can drop, and yet we can be subjected to the harshest cruelties of life, that being fear, isolation, loneliness as a result of grief, or we get very bad news, or we just feel like we're a little bit more separate to the world than we used to. And again, I think with the pace of technology, it's so easy to feel left behind. I mean, I even struggle with technology at times, so I can't imagine how difficult it is for people, 70, 80 plus, who are, I mean, a lot of people can manage very well, but at the same time, it is very easy to feel more isolated by technology, ironically. So yeah, I think, first of all, emotional health, supporting supporting anyone who's, going through grief is really, really important. But especially for people who are more vulnerable at certain times of our lives, homeopathy is a beautiful, beautiful support for them. Um, Classically, Ignatia is a wonderful remedy that we can give to people who have acute grief issues, or who are even just kind of grieving for their own old selves, their
Yes.
old lives.
Yeah.
I can imagine an identity crisis can easily kind of come to the fore. In fact, I remember when I was younger. I'm sure I was probably about, I don't know, 13, 14, and my mother would have been a little older in her day having me. But I remember her looking in the mirror. She was probably the same age as I am now, and she was saying, look at my face and the lines. And she said, I am whatever age, but inside I feel 25. And I
Mm.
think you often hear people saying that, their body is failing them, but their emotions are still strong and as important and need to be acknowledged. And homeopathy can really give that lovely level of comfort for grief, for loneliness, for isolation. Um, I think we're often asked about potency as well when it comes to grief, and it's an instinctive thing for me in practice to go a little bit higher if someone's in an acute state of grief. But I think we always have to remember, in general, as homeopaths, we try to match the energy of the person with the energy of what's presenting with the correct potency. And I find as well that sometimes we can kind of overshoot the
Yeah.
wrong way with giving too high potencies to people whose vital force is a little bit more fragile. So if we are, for example, prescribing for grief, I'd always consider going a little bit lower and more frequent, and then just stop and wait and see
Yeah.
how we're doing.
You're absolutely right, because like you say, there's so many life changes that happen as you get older. So you might have moved away from where you've been living for the last 30 years to go
Yeah,
close to family. So you might have lost that connection with people. You might have just stopped driving for
yeah.
and had that independence taken away from
That's
you.
huge,
And that is
huge.
huge grief.
Absolutely, it is. Like grief is all encompassing. Retirement, so many people are forced into, and I'm using the word forced into retirement when they're well physically capable and able to keep going to do part-time work. And that sense of feeling redundant or not wanted, or, just is this it? Is my, is this
Yeah.
me? And
Yeah.
again, going back to your identity can often be kind of wrapped up in who you are and what you do. For many people, even now, I suppose sometimes grandparents, as are now new carers for their grandchildren, because
Hmm.
the current kind of state of the world
Yes.
means that people in their 20s, 30s, 40s are struggling financially, can't necessarily afford childcare. So I often come across, grandparents of any age between maybe, you know, 58, 60 up to 75, who are forced into being carers, childminders, and it's exhausting for them. And even physically, they're grieving for the
Yes.
time that they want themselves
Yeah.
to kind of, maybe travel, play bridge, do whatever. But they don't want to let their families down. So there's so many kind of interwoven grievances and grief and so on an emotional level that we could look at with homeopathy.
It's
I know
really,
I tend to kind of get very passionate when talking about emotional health, but it is really important at any age.
yeah. Let's talk about some of those physical symptoms as
Yeah,
well that happen. Because obviously, as you've already mentioned, the skin changes, the joints
yeah.
may be suffering, eyesight, hearing, might be memory, of course, as
Oh,
well,
yeah,
might start to
yeah,
be affected as well. What sort of remedies are you looking at for the older generation?
yeah. I think let's always go back to basics with remedies when we're kind of talking about um any of these ailments that you've mentioned. I think for me, what I would be considering is what are the most common issues? Yeah, physically that kind of in your senior years one faces. Um, who works in ER or GP practice, and they'll say, falls, unexpected falls are huge for people. Our balance, our motor skills, everything is starting to degenerate a little bit. So, if we're looking at kind of falls, arnica,
Yeah.
hypericum,
Yeah.
calendula, aconite for the shock of the fall, and
Yeah.
arnica for shock as well. I think it's another one. We always overlook the idea that arnica is great for the kind of the trauma to the actual part of the body.
Mm.
But if somebody's in an arnica state, they'll always say, "I'm fine. There's nothing wrong with me." And that's where you need to kind of go, I think you do need arnica, maybe a little higher than 6 or 30 C.
Yeah.
So yeah, arnica, calendula, hypericum. A lot of the first aid remedies are always going to really help.
Yeah. Let's
We're
just go
also
through
thinking about,
those.
oh, sorry.
Let's just go
Yeah.
through those three because obviously they're quite different. So arnica we know for shock and bruising.
Yeah.
Calendula for open wounds, for cuts,
Yes.
grazes,
Yes.
anything that's open, and hypericum for nerve in hurt,
Yes.
pain. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Another one to consider as well with older people would be the susceptibility for broken bones. With osteoporosis is one thing that's also kind of in that particular mix. And symphytum is another great remedy to consider, because if somebody easily breaks, their bones easily break, I should say, provided that it's set well. Symphytum is a fantastic remedy to really, set that bone, to heal. So, there's a lovely kind of group of remedies there specifically, I think, for kind of falls.
Yeah, absolutely right. And that is such a good remedy to have in the first aid kit, isn't it? If you have got
symphytum.
osteoporosis, as well as calc phos, perhaps.
Oh yeah.
To help
Of course.
just strengthen a little bit as you're going.
Yeah.
Of course, we've got obviously a fall pain. We might actually be needing something for the actual pain, and we could be looking at, as you said, the hypericum already, magphos maybe, or chamomilla even.
Yeah.
If that pain is intense, because let's face it, your skin's much thinner, isn't it? You bruise much more easily.
Yeah. And I think I should say it, I have an aunt who, she's an amazing lady. She's well in her 80s, and she always takes pride in her appearance, and she dresses so well. And she has been very distressed in the last kind of couple of years because she's developed a lot of the skin purpura, I can't pronounce it. That very dark discoloration. She might just knock her hand against a handle very lightly, and suddenly, in a couple of hours, this very dark bruising appears. And she was very upset and asking me about that. And I actually found that lachesis, in her particular case, lachesis was fabulous. You might think, oh, arnica, it's bruising, but it actually wasn't bruising. It was more this particular kind of fragility to the skin. So lachesis.
The vein, I guess as well. The quality of the veins in there is very much in lachesis, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So skin, I think, is another very, very kind of strong area of things changing and happening like that, whether it's kind of just the skin fragility or again, bringing my family members into play. My lovely father, who was a pharmacist and stocked homeopathic remedies, he only came to using remedies when he was in his kind of late 70s, and he had a lot of kind of very dry skin, flaking from his scalp, and he really, really did well on some great remedies, but they were more constitutional. And he was amazed at the impact that the remedies had on him. And he passed away at 92, and his skin was literally like mine. It was just so smooth and so beautiful. And I think, he got to a great age. He was mobile. He was able to walk, and it was literally passing of my mother. He just died of a broken heart, and he wanted to go. It was his time to go. But until then, after 15 years of using remedies between the age of kind of 78 and kind of 90, his quality of life was fantastic. His mobility was amazing. I mean, he was the best advertisement
Uh,
for homeopathy in senior years that I could ever have asked for.
of course. And I'm so glad that he used the remedies, having sold them
Yeah,
years as
yeah,
well.
exactly, exactly.
Um,
So he was a great advocate for homeopathy, and I will say an advocate for medicine in general. So there's a place for everything, and again, which leads into a question I would say is commonly asked: if my family member is on medication, can I stop it and go on remedies? And I would say no, not necessarily.
yeah,
We have to be responsible.
yeah,
Remedies are an amazing support, but depending on what it is, it could be a heart condition, it could be cancer that your family member's on. What remedies can do is support things beautifully, or we can assess and see how your family member is getting on. And it might be that they don't necessarily need as much of the medication. The dosage can be reduced, but every single case is different. So, we can't be irresponsible to say, go off your heart medication or cholesterol tablets or whatever. That has to be done under, strict medical supervision.
yes, you're absolutely right. And it's so important for us to remember that homeopathy works alongside the medication. It doesn't matter what medication you're taking or how much medication, you can still use homeopathy. And the homeopathy is not going to affect your medication, and your medication
Yeah,
is not going to affect your homeopathy. It can work side and side. And that's the great thing about it, because it works in such a completely different way that
yeah,
it's just going to add to your quality of life. And even better, if it takes away some of the side effects of the medication that
yeah,
you're having.
yeah, exactly. Um, another physical thing that just popped into my head that I would see a lot is urinary tract infections, and urinary problems of varying degrees, and even just kind of incontinence. Now, that can be so distressing for people. So your kidneys, bladder, that kind of urogenital health is beautifully managed and supported by homeopathy too. Um, for kind of acute
Mhm.
urinary tract infections, we've got Staphysagria, we have Cantharis, we have Apis, and always will match the particular symptoms to the remedy. But yeah, that's just
Yeah.
another.
And of course, with that, we've got remedies that actually are bladder support remedies,
Yeah,
which really strengthen the kidneys and the bladder. So berberis, um,
berberis.
and
Yeah,
yeah, creosotum even. There are homeopathy is brilliant actually for the bladder,
I
and
know,
isn't it?
I know.
Um, yeah,
When we
yeah,
start to think about these conditions as well, we're kind of going, oh, actually, and this and that and the other. But yeah, because even the susceptibility for kidney stones, gallstones, you know, many other kind of conditions,
exactly.
homeopathy is fantastic. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, we have got
great.
some great remedies. Joints. Let's talk about joints, because we know as we start to get older, our joints aren't quite as good as they used to be, and sometimes they can be really, really painful.
Absolutely, yeah. Arthritis and joint care. Um, there's a multitude of remedies that can support. We've got Ruta, Rustox,
Yeah,
um, some of the, I'm actually going blank at the moment here, sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
Arnica, of course, it goes
Yeah.
really well with Rustox and Ruta, and caustic.
Yeah,
But
of
what I know
course. Yeah.
is when we look in the repertories and you look at the individual joints, there's a different
Mm,
remedy for each joint. So people think, no,
yeah.
no, that you're saying, well, which joint is it? Which hand is it? And that is because all of the information that has been used before is recorded and put in the books, and that's what we're taking our information for. So if that remedy has been useful to help with the arthritis in one
Yeah,
particular joint, it's in the book, and we know that, and we can use that information. So, you know,
exactly.
oh,
I mean, again, like even somebody who might have difficulty raising their arm,
yeah,
they'll off you'll you'll get so much information by kind of just probing a little bit and saying, tell me more. Which direction is it going? That's this way that
yeah.
hurts, or is it going upward? Or and then you can dig a little bit deeper, saying, what's the sensation? Is it pinching? Is it burning? Is it just kind of a paralysis feeling? I actually, just like you mentioned there a second ago, with just the finite kind of rubrics or symptoms. I came across a remedy, asparagus, which really helped somebody with shoulder pain, that their mobility was very, very, and they had tried the normals, the Ruter, was tops, but it was going back and saying, I'm struggling here, help me a little bit more and try and tell me as much as you can that's specific to your shoulder pain. And by just drilling down a little bit more, we got to asparagus. So every day is school day.
Isn't it just? I'm going to have to go and look up asparagus now because I've never given that remedy
There
for
you go.
shoulder
Yeah.
pain. So, and just even describing when it hurts, when you're reaching for something or trying to put something away, tell us what time of day it is, tell us which cupboard it is, where it is, because your information leads to the right remedy, doesn't
Yeah.
it?
We are full of clues. Our
Yeah.
bodies are amazing. We're just and as homeopaths, we love detective work.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
all about just going through the clues and finding remedies. Um, yeah, so I suppose going full circle, we've kind of started off with the emotional and physical, and now maybe kind of going back to mental, other challenges in kind of elder and senior care would be memory, dementia,
Yes.
Alzheimer's.
Of course.
We all really, really, it's the most heartbreaking thing to see people, struggle with grasping to find words, or short-term memory is kind of evading them. So yeah, kind of mentally there are great remedies as well to support.
And also help you, even if they're not going to bring your memory back
Yeah,
completely, just for you to be more relaxed about actually not remembering this or not remembering this allows you then to um to find ways that are going to make your life easier, aren't they? So learning to write notes and put do things life differently, really, because things have changed so much.
yeah,
But I think that's we see this so often with homeopathy, don't we, that it just makes you so much more relaxed with the environment around you.
yeah, very true. And as carers of people who are maybe struggling or challenged by dementia, Alzheimer's, we're grieving our own family members. We're grieving, our parents, grandparents who we remember as person A, but they're presenting as person B. And that's really, really hard. So we have to look after ourselves as well. It's kind of it distills down, the suffering and the challenges with caring for people with dementia, mental illness as well in seniors. It really can have an impact on on family and friends and reverberate out
Yes.
a lot. So we have to look after ourselves and keep our own strength up as well, because we can get tired, we can get exhausted. And
And
sometimes we're the
irritable.
sandwich generation.
Yeah, and we have got some great remedies, haven't we? We've got remedies if you have been losing sleep because you're up at night a lot looking after other people. We've got remedies if you're becoming irritated by family, and need to
Yeah,
distance yourself by family. We've got remedies for all sorts of emotional responses that you are having at the moment. And of course, remedies like carcinosin, where we want to be responsible, we take on the responsibility, and sometimes we feel that it's however much we're doing, we still can't please, we still can't
yeah,
uh, get the reactions that we're after. So wherever you are on this emotional plane, just by understanding, well, how does that make you feel, and what makes it different, what changes, it can lead to a beautiful remedy, can't it?
absolutely. Yeah, for sure. So I think that's been a good snap of how we can support you and your loved ones in their senior years, ourselves as we're facing into it, because time flies. Well, hopefully we'll all get there. So yeah, I
Yeah.
think that's
It's really lovely, Ciara, because we don't often talk about this age group. We talked a couple of weeks ago about palliative care, and that's just
yeah,
another stage on. And we talk about menopause and that way. And this is that in-betweeny years, isn't it?
yeah,
Which there's going to be 20, 30 years maybe of change, and supporting you as a family member and your loved ones. And it's lovely. And I hope it's just opened the doors for people to understand
yeah,
you're looking at people in a slightly different way because you're
yeah,
understanding it in a slightly different way. And
exactly. And no matter what age we are, we're important and we matter, and we need to be heard and we need to be listened to. So that's really, really important. I know sometimes, Mary, you ask us as homeopaths, what do we specialize in? And I say on my profile, I specialize in people because I love grumpy babies. I love kids. I love teenagers. I have so much respect for kind of, people in midlife, because they can have a lot of responsibilities and challenges. And I adore people of senior years because, well, they're our best teachers, and we should cherish them and love them for as long as possible. And homeopathy is just fantastic for helping to elongate a great quality of life. And yeah, so that's just my last little throw in comment there.
Ciara, that's so lovely. And of course, what it really means is, you are such a beautiful listener. And it's really lovely knowing you as a homeopath. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mary. That's great. Thank you.
Speak soon.
Bye.
Thank you so much, Ciara, for coming on and sharing this insight with me, all about homeopathy for people in their senior years. And it has just opened up so many possibilities that perhaps people haven't been thinking about themselves. So thank you so much for joining us. Now, next week, I'm going to be talking with Susie Connolly Bale. Susie is going to be discussing with me about perimenopause. So how can we be using homeopathy to help us through this next stage in our life, and actually how to just make us sail through it, through to menopause, and learn more about it and understand the symptoms and what our body is actually saying. So we're going to be talking about hormones, we're going to be talking about moods, we're going to be talking about eating, we're going to be talking about all sorts of rebalancing that your body is going through and what you can be doing to make life a little bit more comfortable as you approach this time. I look forward to seeing you then. I do hope you've enjoyed these episodes, and I do hope you can subscribe to our channels. Now, there are various ways for you to listen to our podcast or watch it on video on YouTube. So whether it's iTunes, Spotify, or YouTube, please do subscribe and please do leave us a review. If you leave us a review on these platforms, then more people will see our podcast. We just want more people to share the joy of homeopathy. It's a choice that everybody should know about. Please do everything you can to help us help more people.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode and look forward to listening to our next one. Please don't forget to follow our podcast on your chosen channel, and please do leave us a review so we can continue to share homeopathy with as many people as possible. If you do have any questions, please do reach out to us on any of our social platforms mentioned in the show notes. We at Homeopathy 24/7 hope to empower you on your natural health journey.